Hi class, and welcome to this screencast on biodiversity and ecology behavior. We just looked at interactions with the environment, and now we're really going to look at how all of these organisms and how all of these populations interact and communicate with one another. And that is key, the communication. And so we're going to sort of break this up into two different parts. The first part, we're going to look at some various mechanisms, and we're going to really relate these to natural selection. And remember, natural selection means surviving and reproducing. So all of these behaviors somehow must contribute to their survival and then to their successful reproduction. So we'll look at two types of behavior, innate versus learned, and then some behavior and responses in plants and animals and how it contributes to natural selection. Just keep in mind the big overall idea here throughout this video is how do organisms respond to and then communicate information to one another. So it's sort of a two-way road there. All right, so let's first look at the types of behaviors. The first type is innate. So this is developmentally fixed. It's inherited. Nearly all individuals in a population are going to exhibit the same behavior. Even if their internal or external environment is different, they're going to exhibit the same behavior, which is pretty cool, right? An example of this is called a fixed action pattern, and a special type of fish displays this. It's called the male stickleback, and the type of fixed action pattern they display has to do with a stimulus of a red belly. I'll get to that in a second. So what a fixed action pattern is, it's a sequence of unlearned, remember that it's inherited, a sequence of unlearned acts directly linked to a simple stimulus, and the stimulus is called a sign stimulus. So in the case of the red-bellied stickleback, it's the red object that is the sign stimulus. So here's a picture of what we're talking about here with a fixed action pattern. These male sticklebacks are always going to see a red object or a red belly, and they're going to attack it. Whereas if they see a gray or a swollen belly, they're not going to attack it. So think about a natural selection. This makes sense. If they're looking at this, they're seeing a competitor, right? They're seeing another male who has this red belly. And so it is fixed in them, inherited in them to attack this male. Whereas when they see the sign stimulus of a gray belly or a swollen belly, that is telling them it's a female and they're going to court that. So that is an example of an innate behavior. Now versus learned behavior, which learning occurs through interactions with other organisms or with the environment. And an example of this is called associative learning. So the ability to associate one environmental feature with another. And I think this example is pretty cool. So we've got blue jays, okay? So whenever blue jays ingest this brightly colored monarch, they get sick and they throw up. So what they do is they learn, because now they associate this monarch with a foul taste and with getting sick, so they learn to avoid this monarch, and they learn to avoid other butterflies that look like that monarch butterfly. That's a learned behavior. They're not born with the knowledge of knowing not to eat that butterfly. So that's an associative type of learning because they associate the foul taste with that butterfly. Okay, plants also have behavior that contribute to natural selection. We've already talked about both of these. Phototropism, remember that's sort of changing how they grow towards or away from light. And so how does this result in natural selection? Well, when they're growing towards the light, they're maximizing the exposure of leaves to the light for photosynthesis. So these leaves now have more surface area going towards the light, more photosynthesis, more carbon, more sugar, more survival, more reproduction. Another example, photoperiodism. So they've evolved to sort of respond to their environment, right? So changes in the length of day regulate flowering and preparation for winter. So short day plants only flower after June 21st when days get shorter. What does this show? This shows a response to their environment and how it contributes to natural selection and the continuation of that species of plant. Now, animal behaviors are also vital to natural selection, and these are also triggered by environmental cues. So remember, being very responsive to the environment. These are important to reproduction, natural selection, survival. Common examples that you probably already know about: hibernation in the winter, migration during different seasons, and courtship. And if you just YouTube bird of paradise courtship, this is a bird of paradise. It's just a fascinating video of this courtship dance. And these Birds also do a very interesting dance as well. That's a behavior. Courtship is a behavior. Most of the time it's innate, it's not learned, that was going to contribute to reproductive success and therefore evolution. Now there's another type of behavior called cooperative behavior. This can happen within a population, so same individuals in the same population, or it could occur between populations, two different ones. But either way, it's going to lead to survival of the population. And the example I'm going to give you is called niche partitioning, or it's also called resource partitioning. And so what this is that natural selection is going to sort of push or drive competing species into different niches. So if two different species are competing for the same habitat, the same food, the same prey, natural selection is going to dictate that that can't go on forever. One species is going to have to take over this niche and this habitat, and one species is going to have to take over this one. So what this allows then is it allows two species to partition certain resources so that one species does not outcompete the other, and hence they both survive, they both reproduce, and they both evolve. So this goes right along with what the competitive exclusion principle says. Once you do just a little bit of research, not take too much time, but tell me in your notes, what does the competitive exclusion principle say? And then I want you to think about and jot down in your notes, would there ever be a time or circumstance when resource partitioning would not happen? So here's an example of resource partitioning with the Caribbean anole. As many as 5 different of these little lizard guys can exist in the same exact forest, 5. But each of them has their own little niche. Some occupy the high canopies, some occupy the lower trunks, and some forage closer to the ground or even under the ground. So that's a perfect example of resource partitioning. Another example of cooperative behavior besides resource partitioning is pack behavior. This is going to increase the fitness of the individual because they're acting as a pack, and therefore it's going to increase the survival of the entire population. An example that I love is the pack hunting of dolphins, and here's a picture of this right here. So one common feeding method for dolphins is called herding or pack hunting, where a pod is going to sort of squeeze a whole school of fish. So here's a school of fish, and you can imagine the dolphins sort of swimming and squeezing them together into sort of a bait ball. And so then individual dolphins then take turns plowing into that bait ball, feeding on those stunned fish. So that increases the fitness because they're eating and they're able to survive, but they're doing it together as a pack. Okay, so now let's look at a little bit more about specific types of communication, transmission of this information, and different mechanisms of how they communicate and respond. So the big thing here is, how do organisms communicate this information to each other? Again, responding to external environmental cues, but also internal changes as well. And here's an example that I like. It's called mobbing. So this is an example of a predator warning. So individuals of some species are going to actually mob a predator. So here's an example of, I think these are crows mobbing a hawk. And they're going to cooperatively attack or harass that predator, that hawk, to protect their offspring. So they're cooperating with one another. They're sending signals somehow to one another to help sort of attack this predator. Plants also have behavior and communicate and interactions. When they are being eaten by herbivores, they're going to respond to this herbivory. And they respond in a number of ways, but one way is with chemical defenses. An example I found is sagebrush. Sagebrush actually have been found to communicate and cooperate with other branches of sagebrush by emitting these volatile compounds, these chemicals that are going to prevent them from being eaten by grasshoppers, because grasshoppers obviously don't like those chemicals and it's foul tasting to them. So I want you to look at, like I said, plants have a number of different mechanisms of defense. I want you to research 2 other examples of plant defense mechanisms. So other mechanisms of communication, remember that signal behaviors or cues from one organism are going to produce changes in the behavior of other organisms. So it's both communicating and then it's a response to a communication. But why? Why will it change the behavior of another organism? Well, the answer is differential reproductive success. By communicating with the members of your population as a whole, you are all going to be able to survive and reproduce. An example of this is territorial marking. So this is obviously the depositing of a scent on a territory to communicate with other species, to sort of tell other species to stay away. This is my mating den, or this is where I'm going to raise my offspring, and to protect your offspring. So all 5 different ways that animals communicate: visual, audible, tactile, electrical signals, and chemical signals. And so the purpose of any of these would be maybe to indicate dominance, to find food, to establish territory. Overall, remember, it's to ensure reproductive success. So communicating with other members of your population to do any one of these things. One example I really think is funny is the bee dance. It's called a waggle. Again, you can YouTube this and actually see bees doing this, but it's this really funky figure 8 dance of the honeybee. And so by performing this, successful foragers who've already found food can do this little dance, and depending on how they do this dance, they can tell other honeybees where food is, where pollen is, where water is, or where a new housing structure might be, all just in the way that they do their little dance. And so I want you to come up with 2 other examples of animal communication. It could be audible, tactile, chemical, doesn't matter, but just come up with 2 other examples, and we're going to share them in class. And hopefully we come up with some good variety and have some fun with it. And then I just leave you with these 3 questions, and we'll talk more about animal behavior in class.